And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm David Burnett, your host for tonight. Let me introduce the fellas. Let me start with Larry Abels, the voice of reason on this show. Larry, how you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Waiting for the Pacers to play tonight. Also, from Washington, D.C., Chuck Charles Snowden II. How you doing?
Hey, David, I'm doing great. Good luck to your Pacers tonight. Love Wednesdays at 7. It's good to see Al back with us. Can't wait to cut up the week in sports.
And introducing, as Chuck just mentioned, Al Richardson from WTTG TV, Channel 5 in Indy.
How's everybody doing?
How you doing, Al?
Welcome back.
Appreciate being here. Appreciate being welcome back. And I'm doing good. Let's chop it up.
All right. Let's chop up the NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers, my team, against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Series is 1-1, but it feels like, unfortunately for me, Oklahoma City is in control of this series. Larry, let me start with you. What do you see?
I see all the experts saying how far Oklahoma City's in control. I mean, I look at it as a close series. I think two pretty evenly matched teams. I think this is going to be a long series.
Let me go to you, Al. Your thoughts on is Oklahoma City in control of the series? It just feels that way to me. Maybe because I'm a homer, but it feels like Oklahoma City's taking charge. Do you think so?
Here's what I've observed. The first two games, Indiana's only led by at 0.3 seconds of one of the games. They've been decisively outplayed. However, these are road games. And if you would have started this series and said Oklahoma would win the first two games, that would not have surprised you. So that Indiana's found a way to get one of those games is huge. Now, having said all of that, they must win tonight. If for no other reason but psychologically. They've got to win and play well. They have not played up to their capabilities in the first two games, at least for long stretches. Now the question is how much does Oklahoma have to do with that? Are they forcing Indiana to not play up to snuff, or is it just the first two games on the road and those results are fairly predictable? And when you consider that it is 1-1, there are worse places to be, but they need to win tonight. And at worst, if they do not win tonight, they must play well. They must show to themselves, almost as much as Oklahoma City, that they belong, because the first two games, Oklahoma has looked like the better team so far.
I would agree with that. Chuck, you're nodding your head to that. What do you think?
So I agree with all the thoughts and comments that have been made. And I will say to you, David, because I know you're a Pacer fan and I know how you feel, but it's 1-1. They went out to OKC and they stole a game. That's exactly what they were trying to do, right? They got their one game. OKC had to win that second game, so they played with a little bit more desperation. And we'll see what happens tonight. We really will.
Speaking of the Pacers, and we'll start with the Pacers and just analyze them and some of the players. The key player on the Pacers is Tyrese Halliburton. He played passively in my estimation in game two. He won the game in game one with the game-winning shot. What does he have to do, Chuck, to reestablish his presence for the Pacers?
So, originally I wasn't a big Halliburton fan. And of course,
No,
he's
you weren't.
over
No,
the
you weren't.
game-winning plays that he's made in these playoffs. Interesting enough, Halliburton had more points in the second game, even though he didn't look good, than he did in the first game.
Correct.
So here's the thing. The difference between, to me, a superstar and a good player is the consistency thing. You can't ask him, because I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think you can ask him to be, 25 to 30 point a game Halliburton every single game. He ain't that kind of guy. But he has to play better. Absolutely, positively, must play better. So, which means early in the game, he's got to take some shots. You can't just pass the ball every time. You got to put some shots up. I think he understands that. I think they went over the film. I think he will put some shots up. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have double figures in the first quarter.
Well, let's hope so. Let me ask you, Larry, your thoughts on Tyrese Halliburton, and then we'll analyze SGA after that.
Believe it or not, he was their leading scorer, Indiana's leading scorer. The biggest problem in game two was he had more turnovers than assists. He could have used their scoring a little more equitably distributed throughout the game, like I think a lot of people are saying. But, none of them really scored that much for Indiana. They had a real balanced attack, but the top four scorers in the game all played for Oklahoma City. So it's going to be Halliburton, and other people need to step up. The guy that I like a lot is Siakam, and he didn't really find
his butt was on the floor more times than the ball was in the basket. Al, your thoughts on
but before we go to Al, one more thing.
Go ahead. Finish your thought, Larry. I'm sorry.
Al wasn't here last week, but everyone else picked 2-0 and 2-0, and one person on this panel picked 1-1. It was me. That's right.
Could that have been you? Was that you? All right.
Don't tear that rotator cuff, patting yourself on the back now, Larry. Don't hurt yourself.
Your thoughts.
Here's the deal. Halliburton is being judged in my mind by the wrong standard. I agree with Chuck. He is not a superstar, but here's the key for them. Halliburton's team wins when he is more of a he has to walk the fine line between getting everyone else involved and getting his. And sometimes in some of the games, in fact, I've noticed it happened in the New York series, it happened once in the Milwaukee series, and I believe the series before that it may have even happened. He is walking the fine line between getting everyone else involved, because that's what it's going to take for his team to win, and getting his. And sometimes he just misses the mark. They're not going to win if he scores 40. They're not. That's not how they win. That's not how they win. He is going to have to be in that 18 to 25 range with about 11 assists and no more than 3 or 4 turnovers, because it's the turnovers that kill him. Those live ball turnovers, which OKC gets out on the break on. They are, aside from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they're average in the half court. They're okay. But it's the live ball turnovers when them Greyhounds get out there and run and get it up off the glass and turn it into a track meet. And the funniest thing is I think Indiana actually plays with better pace than OKC. However, OKC's pace is generated off of their defense, those live ball turnovers, and layups at the other end. Whereas in Indiana's case, their pace is generated by pushing it up court, driving the lane, and kicking it out to shooters for those 3-pointers.
Let's go over to OKC. Their star SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, superstar, no question. He scored, I think, 80-some points, or 72. I think 72 points. He's averaging 36 points a game. He's getting wherever he wants to get. What do you think, Chuck?
He is. And Indiana right now doesn't have or haven't figured out how to stop him. But again, I don't know that he hurt them, But when you let Caruso get 20 and you let Wiggins get 18, and by the way, back to the turnovers, in that game, those two teams, they were exactly the same in turnovers. Now I know it's the when you have them in the game and all that, but they had the same amount of turnovers. Game one, Indiana had 25 turnovers. OKC only had 7, and Indiana won the game. So I think the key for Indiana is this, to me. As I said, they had the same amount of turnovers in that second game, but they had the same amount of 3-pointers made. Indiana has to have 7, 8, 9, 10 more made 3-pointers than OKC. If they don't, that's their advantage. Their advantage is they can shoot that basketball. But if you're telling me that OKC and Indiana have the same amount of threes, we're gonna have a problem.
Larry, your thoughts on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what he's been able to do?
I thought the first game, he ended up shooting 30 times, and maybe because nobody else on their team was really hitting any shots. But he sort of did what I think Halliburton needs to do. He started off making sure everyone got involved before he started shooting. Then he started shooting. He's a great all-around player. That's all I can take. He's like a machine to me. You'll never see him on SportsCenter dunking and all of that stuff. He's just a real consistent player on both ends. Go ahead.
One of the things I noticed about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the fact that as a superstar, he's won the MVP this year, led the league in scoring, but he's kind of the silent superstar. Would he be more notable if he were getting most of his points from 3 instead of being, the mid-range king? Larry, let me start with you.
So I'm not sure about notable. I mean, like you said, he was the MVP. I think it's just his style of play is, again, doesn't go in for dunks. I wouldn't change a thing about him. I think he's as notable as he's going to be MVP to win a championship. He'll really receive all the notoriety that's coming his way.
Well, when I talk about notoriety, I'm just really talking about media hype, media endorsement, and he's not getting that kind. What do you think, Al?
Well, you have to understand the way the media promotes, at least in the NBA, it's about highlights, dunks, flash. He doesn't do any of that. As a matter of fact, a comp from our era when we watched ball as we were younger is Alex English. Remember him?
Yes, I remember. He was a former Pacer.
Very similar player. Not a lot of dunking, the king of the mid-range, slender, got to his spots, excellent free throw shooter, really, and by the way, Alex English isn't in the Hall of Fame, go figure, but that's another talk show. He's very similar to that in that he is incredibly effective, not very flashy, and he is a tough guard. I am not a huge fan of the way people say he hunts fouls because, no one hunted fouls in their prime more than James Harden. I mean, that's just the way the game is played. That's the way the game is called. It is on the defenders to adjust to that and, make his life difficult. Here's the thing that Indiana's going to have to do, and it's going to be difficult. In the New York series, they were able to take Jalen Brunson's legs away from him by hitting him with multiple defenders and picking him up in the backcourt. The problem is they don't use Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to bring the ball up court. They let Dort do it. They'll let Caruso do it. They'll even let Jalen Williams do it. So it's very difficult to get him in a position where you can wear him down because he doesn't get that mileage during the course of the game.
Good point. Chuck.
Well, all those were good points, and I have to stop for a second. So Al wasn't on our show, I don't think, when you asked the question. We asked the question a couple of weeks ago. We said, who's a comparable of SGA? And I said, Alex English.
Okay. All right. Well,
the fact that you brought that up, I agree with you big time. I just wanted to make that point. So,
I'm glad I could confirm for you, sir.
Right.
Al, I said George Gervin.
Yeah,
George
we all
Gervin.
kind of said Gervin too.
Yeah, you see, yes, yes. George is It's hard to be smoother than George, though,
No
man.
kidding.
You,
No
it's gonna
kidding.
it's gonna be real tough for you to come up with somebody that's finger rolling from the free throw line. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love me some Shea, but George, that's high praise there.
Right. So here's the deal with SGA. He's just getting started, right?
Yes.
You don't become the face of this league. You got to jump over people like LeBron and Steph and KD and so forth. So it's going to take him a minute, and he's in Oklahoma. So it's going to take him a minute, if ever he becomes the face. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But in terms of his skill set and his ability, I don't know how to. I think we should let him get his 30 and figure out how to stop them other dudes.
Now, you raise an interesting point, Chuck. And
I don't know how
one of the questions I wanted to ask is about the face of the NBA. We'll get back to a couple other questions about the specifics of the series. But who is the face of the NBA? I've listed a couple: SGA, Brunson, Halliburton, Wembanyama, Jokic, maybe Cooper Flag. What defines face of the NBA? And let me start with you, Larry.
Well, I might.
Thanks, man, for checking in.
Hey, Van, thanks for going in. How do we? I will ask that question. How are we defining it? I don't know that.
You tell me. How would you define the face of the NBA?
I don't know. All of that is fluff to me. If I would say that, if I think about who's the most popular player, it's probably still LeBron James
and Steph.
Yeah. If
Okay.
that's if you're asking if it's the most popular player, I mean.
Well, it depends. Depends on your definition, and I think that's part of the issue.
I don't even Jilly entertain that. That's a media creation to me.
Well, the media does help define who is the face of the NBA.
Yeah.
Because if we're still talking about Steph Curry, if we're still talking about LeBron James, we're talking about a decade and a half and 2 decades for LeBron. And I don't know if that's healthy for a league. You've got up and coming stars. Al, what do you think?
My sense of things is that we're in a transition period, and if you want me to be brutally honest, there is no face of the NBA right now.
Agreed.
Because LeBron James, Steph Curry, KD, these are all dynamic players who are on the tail end. Giannis is very very mild-mannered. He just goes and plays. Jokic is probably the best player, but he could give a doggone about the accolades and the media. I think Anthony Edwards was probably prematurely crowned, although he has a very good resume, a playoff resume so far for someone who has yet to make a final. He's knocked off he's got some pretty good pelts on his belt. I mean, he's knocked off some people. We're in a transition period. If I'm going to guess who it will be in the next year or two, if he can stay healthy, it's probably going to be Wemby down in San Antonio.
Chuck, what do you think you're not?
So I think, and Al's right. I think we're in transition. I still think it's Steph. I still think it's LeBron. It's a lot to carry that crown, by the way. And I don't think we can choose that. It happens organically and over time. You have to earn that. And if OKC, and this is a separate conversation, David, I'm not picking on your team, but if OKC pulls this win off and starts stringing these things together, SGA could become that face. Although like Tatum, and you mentioned somebody earlier, they don't have the kind of personality. Anthony Edwards, he has that personality. He hasn't delivered big time yet.
But does he have the game that goes with it? Does he have the game that goes? Right now, Anthony Edwards, to me, is flashy. No. He could fit the mold, but he doesn't have the game yet.
He's 23, David. He's got enough game to get to the final 8 of the.
Well, what I saw in the series against OKC, he didn't play well.
Yeah. Well, that's because OKC's pretty good defensively with Dort.
That's true. That's true.
They doubled and triple teamed him. I mean, I think
it's hard
to slow anybody down.
The thing is double and triple teams work against a player like Anthony Edwards because he is not a natural facilitator. And against OKC, You have to be a natural facilitator for those double teams not to give you problems. This is why Halliburton has the potential to really put his stamp on the series if he can walk the fine line between getting his players involved and getting his. That's going to be difficult to do against that defense, but that's what's got to happen.
All right, you speaking of Halliburton, what he has to do. What adjustments does Oklahoma City need to make? What adjustments do the Pacers need to make? Let me start with you, Larry.
Well, I think they made adjustments in game 2 by going with a larger lineup, because at the end of the game, I think they ended up having a 25-point rebound swing in the second game by playing their bigger men. I don't know why they changed their lineup and went small. I guess they wanted to match up with Indiana without Indiana forcing them to do that. But I think if they got to hit shots. I mean, they didn't shoot well game 1. Mm-hmm. Last game, they hit their open shots. If they hit shots, it's going to be very difficult for Indiana. The other thing that they do well, that they've done well, is they stop Indiana from running. Sometimes I think Indiana might need to slow down a little bit, but you don't see them scoring after made baskets like they've done in a previous series. So I think I'm looking for Indiana to adjust tonight.
Chuck.
Look, man, OKC, they got a little bit of everything, for real. I'm telling you. And they put a game plan together to stop your key player like they do with Caruso and they do with that guy Dort. I mean, they just have a good team. They got people coming to games that we hadn't even seen in the previous
well, let me ask you on that point, Chuck.
And they got 2 bigs. Indiana, if they haven't
hold your thought right there. Who is the key player? The unsung player, most unsung player on OKC? Is it Dort? Is it Caruso?
Well, so far, it's been Caruso.
It varies from game to game. Because think about Wiggins' last game.
I think
he came out of nowhere.
I think it'll be game to game.
But the bottom line is, this is the problem for Indiana. They have 2 bigs. Why they took those 2 bigs out with 6-7 minutes to go in the first game in the fourth quarter didn't make no sense to Chuck, and it hurt them. In this game, those 2 bigs played really well, especially Chet, and I think that's a problem for Indiana. They just don't have the matchup from a big perspective. That's where there's a challenge.
That's true. Al, your thoughts?
Well, the thing about Oklahoma that is really tough to deal with is that they have 4 quality all-league defenders in their 12-man rotation. They got 4. 2 of them start, 2 of them come off the bench. And I'm not counting Chet Holmgren, who's a really good shot blocker, a really good rim protector, and can defend the 3. So yeah, well, I'm not even talking about his offense.
Right.
And the thing is Oklahoma just needs to play the way they play.
You're right,
with the depth that they have and the defenders that they can throw at people. They have an absolute advantage. Indiana's a good team.
They are.
Players 1 through 12. Oklahoma's a better one. Players 1 through 12. The question will be, can Rick Carlisle outcoach Daigneault, or whatever his name is? Hopefully I got it right. Can he outcoach him and make up the difference? Because this will be Rick Carlisle's greatest challenge, even going back from 2011 when he coached Dallas and they beat the Heat, because that team had a transcendent player, Dirk Nowitzki. He doesn't have that guy on his team.
Al, let me interrupt for just a second. You mentioned Mark Daigneault, the head coach of Oklahoma City, 40 years old. He's been coaching them for 5 seasons. Why isn't he getting more love? I mean, Rick Carlisle gets a lot of love, but Daigneault, no, not much. Why?
He'll get a ring. The minute he gets a ring, it'll change. That's really what it boils down to. If you are not if you're not a Doc Rivers, a name coach that is demonstrative on the bench, because if you notice, that dude, you wouldn't even know he was the coach if you didn't call his name. He doesn't yell at people. He doesn't scream.
And we can't pronounce his name either.
Yeah, you can't pronounce his name. He doesn't give the refs a lot of guff. He He doesn't do any of the things that call attention to him. He just coaches. Now, I'll give him credit for something. That game one loss was devastating. Losing that way, and that he got those guys to just shrug that off and come back and play the next game and play as well as they did. That's a really good sign in terms of his coaching acumen. He showed me a little something there, because usually a devastating loss like that has some hangover effect, and it didn't. It didn't at all.
Good point.
That's another good thing about SGA. Even in his post-game interview, when he talked about them losing that game, he was still very mature. He was very measured in what he said. He didn't overreact. I thought he showed a lot of class and a lot of maturity the way he handled even that loss, quite frankly.
He's a smooth guy.
He is
and
smooth.
seems very.
So let me say one thing about, and this is petty. This is just a small petty, and bear with.
Are you gonna be petty?
They call a lot. It's like the Jordan rule a little bit. Like they be beating up other dudes and they don't call the fouls, but if you touch that guy, they call the foul.
Well, we know not to get you upset.
Well, they didn't do that in game one though, Chuck. And Indiana handled him down the stretch. He missed the last shot, but they made a couple of good defensive plays, and the guy that's guarding him, Nembhard, seems to know him.
Love him.
No, they played together. They played
on the Canadian Olympic team.
They played on the Canadian national team.
Those cheap fouls most of the time.
Yeah, they played on the Canadian national team. He knows them very well.
Yeah, it looks like they played. They look like they played tonight, and I think SGA got a little frustrated with him at one point too.
Started pushing him.
Yeah.
Oh, the bumping, yeah. All right,
I love Nembhard. The problem with that is Nembhard gives up about 4 or 5 inches to the guy.
Correct.
Nembhard, they list him at 6'4", but I'd say he's 6'2".
Yes.
I
think he makes some work though. And that's all you can really ask.
That's all you can do.
He did it to Brunson. He did it to Brunson too. He picked him up full court.
Yeah.
And then would be an irritant, if you will.
All right, last thing on the NBA and the playoffs. Ratings decline is what I feared. Two small market teams, no highlight players. Even SGA, the MVP of the league, doesn't get the love he should get. One of the lowest rated finals games in many years. Why is that, Larry? You come at me with some good reason. Your voice
it's
is
real good, because it's all boiled down to casual fans watching. Okay, if you get casual fans in New York or Los Angeles, you're going to have more of them watching. A lot of casual fans watch their team when their team is in the finals. They're the 2 small markets. They don't have as many casual fans as some of the larger markets.
Well, I've always said that's an NBA problem, and the NBA has to fix that.
That's a problem, period, when any league that's trying to attract casual fans as opposed to diehard fans. Like, NFL has a little more diehard audience, but any other sport, people are going to follow their local teams, and you get all these casual fans that don't even pay attention to basketball at all. Oh, the Knicks are in the playoffs. We're there,
And that's an NBA problem. Chuck, your thoughts?
Well, Golden State Warriors, right, before they went on their run and stuff, I considered them a small. I know San Francisco's a big area, don't get me wrong, but they weren't really like on people's radar.
Were not much of a market.
They earned it. They earned it over time. Just like Caitlin Clark, right? Indiana's a small market, quote unquote, but Caitlin Clark caught the attention of this country, and now when they play, when she plays, people tune in. You have to earn it. Al said it perfectly. We're going through a transition. OKC and Indiana may become more popular over time, but you can't expect in the first year when Oklahoma plays Indiana, they was going to be tuning in.
Well, and just to follow that thought, the Pacers in the 90s were one of the top teams in terms of marketability in the NBA with Reggie Miller and all of that, because they were always seen against New York or Chicago.
Yeah.
And they were one of the top rated teams in the NBA back 20 25 years ago. Al, your thoughts on that, on this ratings
But
point?
25 years ago, and actually applies now. What you need when you have two teams that play great basketball in terms of, if you're a purist, they play great basketball. But what you need is tension. Think about this. Other than Halliburton, ain't no real villains in this series. Ain't no Draymond Greens. There aren't those dudes who you got to worry about getting dust up. And see, that's what you need to get the casuals in. You need the tension. You need the rivalry. Now, Indiana and SGA may become a rivalry, but they aren't one now. And so
That's a good point.
Unfortunately, you gotta put a little Tabasco in there to get the casuals to watch. For purists, this is a wonderful series. But if you're an advertiser, right now, what you want to see tonight, if you're an advertiser, is no, for lack of a better way of saying this, you want to see a fight. You want to see tension. You want to see something that gives the casual fan the impression that other than winning a championship, it means something. I'm willing to go through a brick wall. You want to see Nembhard, who's a teammate of SGA, shove him into that damn first row, to get a loose ball. No, and I'm just saying, you remember the series? It was like when the USA played against, I believe it was Brazil in the Olympics. And the first thing Kobe said was, I know Gasol's my teammate, but I'm going to knock the snot out of him first play of the game. And that's what you got to have if you want people to come out and watch it. You need that tension. Golden State had Durant, they had Steph, and they had several other players who were budding stars or whatever. But what made you watch Golden State was Draymond acting a fool, and
you never knew who he was going to choke,
or who might flick off and choke him. Which is what a lot of people wanted to see. And
Brother Al, I think what made you watch Golden State was Steph Curry.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
And that's a pretty big market too. Don't underestimate.
No, San Francisco is a big market.
Yeah, that's a huge market.
You absolutely.
People weren't focused in on the San Francisco team.
No, they weren't.
No, but they're casual. Back to Chuck, I agree with what you're saying about they have to be known. But then again, I'll still say when you can bring your casual fans in there, it's a lot of casual fans in Oakland and San Francisco, San Jose. That's a pretty big area there.
But Oakland and Golden State and San Francisco didn't become popular until Steph started hitting three-pointers.
That's my point. That's really the point.
Well, but they were popular local before that, David. And
they were locally popular, but they were an insignificant franchise.
No,
until
remember, my theory is when you can draw a lot of casual fans locally, it will increase your ratings. And they were popular local. I was out there for playoffs when they had Baron Davis.
I think most teams are popular in their local markets.
Sacramento.
So hold on.
The
Sacramento,
local
for instance,
market is more casual fans from that market that will come.
Sacramento, for instance, were sold out for 20 years.
Like the lamp.
20 years.
Like the lamp.
And local markets are one thing, but national recognition is another. All right, enough on the NBA. Aaron Rodgers signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big deal, no deal. Al.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Aaron Rodgers is in a circumstance now where the only thing he has to do is play football. He doesn't have to resurrect the franchise. He doesn't have to lead. He's playing for a coach who he respects immensely, and he's playing for a coach that wanted him there. You can bet that when they had this 2.5-month hiatus, is he going to sign? Is he not going to sign? You can better know that Mike Tomlin knew Aaron was coming,
right?
Because Mike ain't one to put up with BS normally. Although with his wide receivers, he is known to give them a longer leash than he does some of his other players. I think they got a real chance to get something done. I did a little research. They got the New York Jets, Seattle, New England, Minnesota, and Cleveland. Those are their first 5 games. If they get out to 4-1 or 3-2, they got a shot. They do not have They do not have a killer schedule. I'm looking at it. They got Cleveland, Cincinnati, Green Bay, Indianapolis, Los
Well,
Angeles.
you know, one thing we know for sure is they're going to have a winning season. The question is, are they going to win? Are they going to win a playoff game?
A lot of that's going to have to do this year with momentum. The last 2 years, they walked into the playoffs on 4 and 5 game losing streaks. It's hard to turn it on when that's the way you end your regular season. And that's why you want them off to a fast start. And I'm looking at how they close. They got Detroit, they got Cleveland, they got Baltimore. If they can get it up to, 11-6, 12-5, maybe even 10-7, depending on how they lose, some of those close games, they got a shot. They got a shot. I think Aaron's going to be a little better than people think. He is 42. That's, by the midpoint of the season, he's going to hit that. But the advantage that he is going to give Pittsburgh is going to be before the ball is snapped. When he walks to the line of scrimmage, looks at what the defense is giving him, and either checks out of plays that work or checks into plays that work. I mean, checks out of plays that don't work or checks into plays that work better. And the thing is toward the end of the year, in terms of his passing, he started to look like Aaron Rodgers. He started to be able to dot that ball. And I'm sorry, he's better than who they had. He's better than Russell Wilson. He's better. He's going to prove game one that he's better than the kid that's in New York, Fields. Justin Fields, who's a good quarterback, but he's not Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, I understand he's polarizing, and
he's very polarizing.
He treats people poorly, and I get all of that. But let him start 4-1. Let him start 4-1.
I hear you.
It's going to be interesting.
Let's hear from Chuck. Let me ask you, Chuck, do they need to win a playoff game, though?
The back end of that Pittsburgh schedule was the worst. That was the hard part of their schedule. That's why they lost 4 or 5 games at the end.
Mm-hmm.
The back end was horrendous. And they still are in a conference with the Bengals and the Ravens. That ain't no walk in the park. So
it is. That.
But you're right, Al. They didn't have a quarterback, and now they do.
Yes.
So I think that's we're all curious to see if Father Time has not caught up to him yet and how he will do. And we're all watching. I think OTAs and mini camps and all these things are important, especially when you're new to the team. So I don't know if missing that time that's going to be interesting as well. But they didn't have a quarterback, and now they have one.
I'd like to hear from Larry on this point. And just in terms of, I understand that Pittsburgh is going to win some games that they probably shouldn't win, but can they win playoff games with Aaron Rodgers? Larry, what do you think?
That's the big question, because a lot will depend on who they match up against. If they had to play Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore early enough, even though they've beaten some of those teams during the regular season, I think that's going to be a tough call for them. If they get a good draw the first round, and Al was talking about their schedule, so maybe they can end up in a favorable spot, like maybe the 4th best record. I kind of think they'll do a little better than Cincinnati's. I don't know. I'm not sold on Cincinnati, even though when I look at that division, even with Aaron Rodgers, 2 other teams got better quarterbacks than them with Jackson and Burrows. But a lot will depend on who they have to face in that first round.
All right, on that point, the people in Pittsburgh, the fans in Pittsburgh are getting more and more upset with Mike Tomlin because he's not won a playoff game in 8 years. Is it really a referendum on Mike Tomlin as opposed to Aaron Rodgers? Let me start with you, Larry. Finish your thought there.
Well, I think it's more Tomlin. I have a lot of friends in Pittsburgh, and I think just like anybody that's been there 17 years or whatever, people are just looking for a change. That's all it is. And they are frustrated that they can't get beyond the first round. Certainly that, but they haven't had a quarterback. I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback. I think even Pittsburgh knows they signed him to a 1-year deal, so he's a bridge quarterback. And it's supposed to be a quarterback strong draft coming out of college this year. One thing I'll say about Pittsburgh, though, with their history, this is going to be Tomlin's decision whether he leaves or not. Despite what the fans might think, I think the ownership there will stick with him, and at some point he'll decide whether he's going to leave if he gets tired.
Well, clearly the Rooney family has been fair in terms of that concern in terms of the coach. And Chuck, your thoughts?
It's just hard to project out. If your question is how will they do in the playoffs, it's just hard to project that far out. I mean, I want to see the first 4 or 5 weeks just to see how that looks, and then I'll have a better feel. It's just hard to project because, again, at 42 years old, I don't know. I don't know that much about their offensive line. I know Brady, when he went to Tampa, he handpicked that line. Brady knew what he was. I just don't know those things. So we'll see.
Brady wasn't getting high. And that mattered. Al, finish this thought on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Brady wasn't married when he went to Tampa Bay, and now your boy is married.
I'm not going to touch that. Now, the question will be, by midseason, we're going to have a pretty good idea. Do we have the Aaron Rodgers of old or just an old Aaron Rodgers?
Bingo.
And if it is the former, they're going to have a shot. Again, even when Aaron Rodgers is healthy and playing well, he doesn't need a killer offensive line. He beats you before the snap, and he may be required to with this Pittsburgh team. It will help if he has a running game. I got a funny feeling DK Metcalf is going to love him because he's going to give him plenty of opportunities. I mean, DK Metcalf is an excellent wide receiver, but let's be honest. In Seattle, he did not have the best group of quarterbacks throwing him the ball. He's going to get
David mad. Don't get David mad, Al.
No, I mean, I understand he had Geno at the tail end, and he had him. He had Russell Wilson. But the thing about it is even in the case of Russell Wilson, I'm sorry, you're not going to convince me that a guy who's 5'11" and has to find throwing lanes. You can't see over the line at 5'11". That's difficult. Aaron's going to have some built-in advantages that the last Pittsburgh quarterbacks did not have. And if he is good pre-snap, they are going to be much better offensively than people think, and that's going to be huge for their defense. They may be in a position next year where their defense doesn't have to play lights out all year, because that's what happened last year. Their defense wore down.
Yeah.
Their defense just wore down. And if Aaron can give them some games where they got a chance to win, if they give up 22 or 23 or 24 points, as opposed to having to hold people to 15 and under, they may have a shot. They may have a shot.
Real quickly, here in Indianapolis, we're concerned about a quarterback. Anthony Richardson, this will be his 3rd season in the NFL. He's already hurt, and we're in minicamp. Is Anthony Richardson, Al Richardson, are you all related anyway?
No, we're not. No, because if we were related, I'd be getting some of that money.
Let me ask you this. Is he a bust? Yes or no?
No, he is not a bust yet.
All right.
Here's the deal with Anthony Richardson. I am troubled with his injury history. I am also troubled with the fact that when he was drafted, they took a flyer on him in this regard. He was more of a specimen than he was a quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he only started 11 games.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He did not have a lot of experience. The reason I don't want to label him a bust is because this league right now is chock full of guys who didn't find their stride till their 2nd or 3rd team. Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold. I think Bryce Young is probably going to fall into that category. I really think it's just too early to tell. He is one of those quarterbacks that could have used a full year of sitting behind a veteran. He could have used that. He really could have. And, the problem with a lot of these clubs is they get the quarterback in the 1st round. They spend the money on this guy, and then they feel pressured into throwing him out there, which is one of the reasons why I think Shedeur Sanders is in the perfect situation in Cleveland, because he doesn't have to go out and play immediately.
Well, let me, for joking's sake, he's going to learn behind Dan Jones, and I know Chuck Snowden is really happy about that.
Well, you got some quarterback problems in Indianapolis. If those are your two, David, my God. I warned you, David. I warned you when you drafted Anthony. I told you Anthony Richardson, he only, like you said, he only played 11 games, and his record wasn't really good at Florida. It wasn't good. He looks the part. He does. He's big, strong, throwing 90 yards downfield.
But he's brittle as glass.
He can't play the position called quarterback. That's the problem.
Larry, your thoughts?
I don't know if he's a bust, but he hasn't showed me
Nothing.
a lot thus far.
He's on the line of bust to me. And you know how I am. I was for him until I'm against him. Right now, I'm against him. All right, last thing before we sign off tonight. French Open. French Open tennis, Carlos Alcaraz beat Yannick Sinner. Those are the top two players in men's tennis now. The changing of the guard is happening in tennis. Did you guys watch any of the men's singles final? 5+ hours. Now, I didn't watch all of that. Al, let me start with you.
High-end tennis. I mean, that was you hear this saying all the time. It's a shame someone had to lose. You know, they say it all the time, but it's rare where that's actually the case. That was a really good tennis match. In fact, no one lost. Alcaraz won it. Sinner didn't lose it. Alcaraz won it. And
well, let me ask you this real quickly. Did tennis win? Did men's tennis win?
Now that's a really good question, because here's tennis's issue relative to the legacy of the people that have come before them. Everyone thought Sampras was going to be the greatest, and then Federer zoomed by him. And the minute Federer settled into that greatest mode, Nadal zoomed by him. And the reason the minute they said that Nadal was going to be the greatest, Djokovic zoomed by him. And this kid, Alcaraz, he's got like 4 or 5 Grand Slams, and he's only 25. At the rate he's going to be sitting on 25 at this rate if he doesn't get hurt. So the level of play is great, and it has been sustained over 25 years. But I don't know. Tennis is one of those sports where you kind of need the tension and you kind of need the rivalry. So you kind of want the big bad wolf, much like golf had during Tiger Woods' day. You know, Tiger Woods was the big bad wolf, and everyone chasing him, and that brought eyeballs to the screen. And I think you need that in tennis too. And right now, they passing around that greatest label like it's a $10 you know what.
Chuck, your thoughts.
Hey, listen, let me piggyback on that. You know, one of the things we talked about when we were talking about the NBA was transition, right? The NBA is going through a transition, not only in centers and all that kind of thing, but with the way OKC and the Pacers play. And LeBron is near the end, and Steph's near the end, and KD's near the end. Well, Al mentioned it. Rafi, Joker, and Federer were amazing. And the three of them battled for how many years? Well, they're moving on side now. And these two, Sinner and Alcaraz, for the next 15 years, it's going to be the two of them. They are that good. One's 22, the other's 23. They're about, I think it's like they played each other, I think it's like 50-50. They're like 5 and 5 or something like that.
Well, they're number 1 and number 2 players in the world.
I think just buckle your seats. They are two really formidable champs. I like both of them.
Larry, wrap this up. Is men's tennis a positive now? You want to swing?
I don't really watch men's tennis, and I didn't.
You don't watch men's tennis?
No, I like the women's tennis.
Oh, then let me ask you about Coco Gauff. She won. I was happy that she didn't miss hit. She played well. Yeah. Your thoughts, Larry?
I'm gonna say I'm sorry I missed the men's tennis because I saw some of the highlights there, and you guys know me that I just like intense competition at the championships. And even the first set in the women's tennis when it went into, it was 7-6, and Gauff bounced back from that loss and won the next two. Great match. And of course I was rooting for her, so I was happy to see her win that.
Tennis won this weekend, David. Tennis won. Both the men's and the women were absolutely terrific. To have an American woman win on clay like that. And I don't think what's her name?
Sabalenka.
Her comments at the end, I think, was a little awkward. I think she didn't handle that very gracefully. But Coco took that well too.
Well,
And,
Coco didn't have as many unforced errors
no.
as she normally does.
Say on clay, I guess you can get to all those balls on clay. You know what I'm saying?
Well, she can get to them on grass too, and on hard court. I think she just makes too many unforced errors. So she cut down the unforced errors.
She's still pretty young though, right? Isn't she like 21, something like that?
She's 21, but she's been playing at a high level this is her 6 years now.
Yeah, I know, but I think she's getting to a stage where some of those unforced errors may.
Well, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. But
it was good. Tennis was good this weekend, David.
I'm happy. Anybody see the college softball? Was it worth watching? I thought so.
I did. I think it's a fascinating story. Lady leaves Stanford, gets $1 million of NIL money, comes to Texas Tech in Lubbock. She's a softball pitcher. They get all the way to the championship. It's Texas and Texas Tech, and you got to win 2 out of 3. And she pitched all 3 games. And when she got to game
worth
3,
all that $1 million she's getting this year.
Was she the one that didn't know how to do an intentional walk? Was she the one that was?
That's really the game that hurt her, the first game.
Yeah.
But she was out of gas when they got to the 3rd game because she pitched all 3. By the way, she signed another $1 million deal for next year.
My goodness. Any other thoughts, gentlemen, before we sign off and go into closing comments about college softball? Because I thought it was interesting. I spent all of 3 hours watching college softball. I would never have watched that much college softball. I was impressed.
I'll take your word for it.
All right. Obviously, there's no Caitlin Clark on college softball.
By the way, when is Caitlin coming back?
She could play this week. She could play later
okay.
this
I saw
week.
they lost last night again.
Oh, they took.
But there's 2 teams in the WNBA that are 9-0. There's 2 of them that are 9-0. I think the Liberty are 9-0, and maybe Minnesota's 9-0.
Yeah, the Liberty and Minnesota are both 9-0. Yes.
And they will probably play for the championship in
I
September.
I don't know now, David. Let's not give up on our fever. Let's not give up on them.
Our fever?
I think they played last year for the championship.
Don't give up on the Aces.
Yeah,
I'm giving up on them. The Vegas Aces are not going to go anywhere. Not this year. Not this year.
You better watch them in the playoffs.
They've been
watch them in the playoffs. They got some new players. They're getting used to playing with each other. And they got Asia.
All right, gentlemen, it's been real. Do we have any closing comments? Larry?
Yeah, I have one. I'm going to give a shout out to the, and I'm really into the WNBA, to Golden State Valkyries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
They are the top drawing team in the league. They averaging 18,000, and it's not because Caitlin Clark is coming there. They're actually supporting their team, and they have more. I mean, when they're outdrawing the Fever and the Liberty, that's quite an accomplishment.
I'm
impressed. My hats off to them.
I'm impressed. Chuck.
Mine is just a quick one, and it's not sports related. So we are of an age that music was a big deal to us coming up with Stevie Wonder, and Earth, Wind and Fire, and Jacksons and so forth. I was
just a baby, Chuck.
Huh?
I was just a baby.
You were just a baby, right? I just want to give a melancholy, whatever that word is, to Sly Stone passed this week, and we love Sly Stone. I know he didn't always show up to the concerts, but he was, his music, like his song "Stand" and "Power to the People," and he brought black and white folks together, and he had that funky, introduced that funky little beat that he started, and we like Sly Stone, and I just want to rest in peace, Sylvester.
Good thoughts.
Sly was.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I do actually. You mentioned NIL and the amount of money being made. For my money, every person making NIL money, particularly if you're making, into that $500,000 range or whatever, you need to be writing a check, every one of you, to a guy by the name of Ed O'Bannon.
Yep.
He is the reason why you have this money. He is the Kirk flood of college basketball. And let's not lose sight of something. This dude fought the NCAA for 18 years. He hung in there and he fought the good fight when he could have settled, when he could have walked away. And because he stood in there and fought the way he did, everyone is now getting a piece of that damn pie. And that's long, 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 long overdue.
Well said, Al. Well said. I'm going to conclude by saying I am holding my breath. Tonight, in just a few minutes, the Pacers got to win. Got to win. I've been watching this team for 50 some years, and this is a big deal. We haven't had a home playoff finals game in 25 years, and that place 10 miles away from where I live is going to be electric tonight.
Hey, David, what's the key for you what's the key, in your opinion, for the game tonight?
I think the key tonight is going to be consistency by Halliburton. Siakam has got to deliver and stop falling on the floor, and the support players have to be there. If not, it's going to be a tough series, and it's going to be.
Got to make more threes. They got to make more threes in Oklahoma City. They must make more threes.
Yes, they do. We're all going to be watching in just a few minutes.
Here's what's encouraging, David. Role players tend to play better at home.
Yes.
They tend to play better at home.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Gentlemen, it's been real. Al Richardson, thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me.
WTTG TV. We worked together for about 10 years of the 12 years that I worked, 13 years that I worked there. And it's been a blast to have you on the show. Chuck Snowden, Larry Abels, great one.
Thanks everybody for checking in on the show. I know we didn't shout out.
Come on the show this week, David.
What's that?
Who suggested that Al be on the show this week?
You did.
Oh, okay. I'll pat myself on the back.
Yeah, man, you gonna tear that rotator cuff. You determined you gonna do it.
All right, that's it, everybody. Good night.
I have next week.
Enjoy. We'll see you next week. Chuck.
All right, man. Thank you for having me. Y'all be safe.
Right, take care.